I still remember the day my son told me I didn't understand success. The words slipped out of him so casually you might have thought he was commenting on the weather. "Dad," he said, "times have changed. You don't get what real success looks like anymore." He didn't know that the company printing his shiny business cards, the one whose logo gleamed on every screen in his high-rise office, was the very empire I'd built with calloused hands 3 decades earlier. But I said nothing that day. I just nodded, smiled the way fathers do when silence is wiser than pride, and let him have his moment. That morning, I had woken before dawn, as I always did. Old habits rarely die, they just get quieter. The small kitchen clock read 5:27 a.m. when I poured the first cup of coffee and watched Denver's skyline blush with sunlight. The mug was chipped at the rim, the same one I'd used back when my workshop fit inside a rented storage unit. Across the hallway, the apartment's second room, the place I used to call my office, looked nothing like the corner suites my son inhabited. Mine was scattered with blueprints yellowed by time, worn-out notebooks filled with half-erased calculations, and a single photo of a younger man standing behind a corrugated steel door, proud of his tiny sign, Crawford Innovations. That was me, 26 and fearless, before venture capital firms ever learned my name. I'd built renewable energy turbines when nobody believed small towns would care about clean power. They said the margins were too thin, the technology too volatile, but I saw wind not as risk, only as opportunity, still learning how to speak. And on mornings like this, when the city stirred awake beneath soft light and the roofs shimmered with frost, I liked to revisit that version of myself, maybe to forgive him for the years he'd sacrificed to an idea that almost broke him. Then my phone vibrated. Caleb calling. My son's voice came through cheerful, hurried, expensive. He always sounded like he was running late for his own success. "Morning, Dad. Hey, listen, you remember that leadership summit I told you about? I was selected to represent our division. Big deal, right?" "Congratulations," I said. "That's no small honor." "Yeah, the board's going to be there. Investors, too. CEO wants a presentation that screams vision. If this goes well, I might be heading one of our expansion projects." He paused, waiting for praise. I offered gentle encouragement. "I'm proud of you, son. You've worked hard." "Thanks, Dad, but about that," he hesitated. "You should probably not come to this one. It's, formal, high profile." "I don't want you feeling out of place." Out of place. The phrase landed with the precision of irony. For most of my adult life, I'd defined the place he was now protecting. I had written the company's charter with my own hands, sold its vision, when it was nothing but sketches and relentless optimism. "I understand," I said evenly. "You focus on shining, I'll cheer from here." He sounded relieved. "Thanks, Dad. You always get it." When I hung up, the apartment felt smaller, my coffee colder. For years I had stayed invisible by choice. After selling a controlling interest in Crawford Innovations to a consortium under the new brand name Blue Arc Energy, I'd remained the quiet majority shareholder, the ghost architect behind the skyscraper, whose penthouse now bore their logo. Caleb never realized that Blue Arc had once been my brainchild, renamed only to please investors wary of founder nostalgia. I'd signed the papers knowing one day my own child might work there without ever connecting the dots. Still, hearing him dismiss me as relic hurt more sharply than I expected. That evening, I walked the river path where I'd first tested prototype blades decades ago. The wind had a mischievous bite, swirling cold air through the cottonwoods. I thought of my son's future presentation: numbers, projections, polished charisma. He'd mastered the art of appearing competent. But did he truly understand success? Success, I mused, isn't about applause or elevator badges. It's the peace you feel when the lights go out and you know you didn't trade integrity for convenience. The following week, curiosity outpaced restraint. I emailed a former colleague still serving on Blue Arc's confidential advisory board. "Is the annual summit open to shareholders?" I asked casually. His reply came moments later. "Technically, yes, but attendance by silent partners must be cleared through corporate communications. You planning to show up?" "Just observing," I said. He sent me a digital pass, anonymized, showing only my initials. I smiled. Some ghosts prefer front row seats. The summit landed on a Friday at the downtown convention center. I arrived early, blending among vendors setting up display screens. Gray slacks, plain jacket, nothing that screamed authority. Old habit again. Visibility attracts performance. Invisibility attracts truth. By 8:30, the hall brimmed with executives in tailored suits and optimism. Banners soared overhead proclaiming innovation, integrity, impact. I recognized those words. They were mine, drafted in a mission statement 17 years ago. A staff assistant handed me a program. Keynote, Caleb Crawford, Director of Strategic Development. My chest both tightened and swelled. Hearing the family name echoed under fluorescent lights felt surreal, like watching history impersonate itself. When Caleb finally took the stage, applause erupted. My boy, confident, handsome, flanked by LED backdrops of swirling turbines and sunlit solar fields, he commanded attention with ease, voice smooth as a broadcast anchor's. He unfolded graphs that measured expansion into 3 new states, revenue growth surpassing predictions. And then he arrived at the line that would spark the storm inside me. As my father always says, he announced with a grin, success means adapting faster than everyone else. That's why Blue Arc doesn't dwell in the past. We look forward. Laughter rippled politely through the crowd. He never noticed me in the 3rd row. He moved on. Slick slides, innovation catchphrases, modular energy storage. But I couldn't stop replaying that quote in my mind. I had never said those words, not once. My definition of success had always been rooted in humility, in service, in sustainability before profit. He'd replaced character with velocity. After the presentation, executives mingled around raw wood refreshment tables, boasting organic pastries, as if biodegradable sugar could disguise pride. Caleb drifted between them, shaking hands with the polished confidence of a man auditioning for destiny. I approached quietly, waiting behind a group from logistics. When he turned, our eyes met. Surprise flashed across his face. "Dad, you came?" "I didn't want to intrude," I said. "You were brilliant up there." He grinned, though his voice carried uncertainty. "Thanks. Didn't expect this crowd was your scene." "I helped build this scene, I thought, but didn't say. Instead, you spoke well about innovation. I liked the part about efficiency." "Yeah," he said eagerly, mistaking my reserved tone for admiration. "Efficiency's everything. The old-school mindset doesn't cut it now. You'd be amazed what we're doing with predictive algorithms. Way beyond your days of screwdrivers and turbines." "My days of screwdrivers and turbines. Seems impressive," I said evenly. "Maybe one day you'll show me around headquarters again." He hesitated. "It's hectic. Security's tight. Maybe later, when things calm down." He checked his watch. "Listen, Dad, investors are waiting. Can we talk later?" "Of course," I said, and he was gone, absorbed by executives whose suits cost more than my first prototype. I turned to leave, but heard snippets of conversation behind me. 2 analysts discussing cost overruns, one phrase catching my attention like a spark near fuel. "If the old manufacturing contracts don't get renewed, half our vendors shut down." I stopped walking. The old contracts referred to foundational supply deals, ones I had personally negotiated years earlier to protect small-town technicians who'd grown the company from the ground. If those were being slashed, the Blue Arc I'd envisioned was being hollowed from within, profit first and heart last. That night, in my apartment, I unfolded a yellowed folder labeled Legacy Agreements. Each page carried my signature. Each clause a promise to real families. Caleb's versions of success might erase them without a thought. I sat long into dawn debating whether to intervene. Then a message notification appeared from an unknown sender. "Mr. Crawford, I'm reaching out discreetly. I believe there are internal plans to terminate the original vendor network. It will devastate hundreds of workers. You might be the only person with authority to stop it." Attached. Draft contracts stamped for executive review. So it was true. The empire my son thought embodied modern success was preparing to amputate its conscience. The next morning, I called an old friend still seated on the compliance board. "If these get approved," I said quietly, "how fast can they go into effect?" "Within a week," he replied. "Why? You worried about optics?" "I'm worried about decency." He sighed. "Times changed, Peter. People chase shareholder confidence now, not morale." Then maybe it's time confidence met its reckoning. He chuckled, unsure whether I was serious. By evening, my decision was made. The following Thursday, Blue Ark's executive dinner, an exclusive gathering at the new Skyglass Tower, was scheduled to celebrate the quarter's profits. Caleb would be there, sitting among the very board members preparing to sign away hundreds of livelihoods. I would go too, no longer invisible. The afternoon of the dinner, I buttoned a plain charcoal suit. Not designer, but tailored well from older days. In the mirror, I saw a man older, calmer, yet sharpened by purpose. At the Skyglass entrance, the valet greeted me with the neutral politeness reserved for middle management. I handed over my keys and stepped toward the elevator. My invitation, signed only with initials, passed inspection easily. On the 42nd floor, glass walls revealed Denver's skyline bleeding gold over the mountains. Inside, violin music floated between laughter and clinking glasses. Caleb stood near the head table, talking animatedly to a woman I recognized as the chief financial officer. His confidence radiated like neon, bright, a little harsh. I waited for the right moment, blending beside a column of orchids until the speeches began. The CEO rose first, reciting metrics, applauding, "Our young blood bringing tomorrow's vision today." Caleb's name punctuated every other paragraph. "Now," the CEO said, "our Director of Strategic Development will outline our next leap forward, streamlining operations and optimizing vendor efficiency." Applause swelled as my son approached the podium again. From my seat near the back, I could see the projection of future contracts on a screen, digital signatures pending. Each line represented the severing of communities I'd once promised stability. My jaw clenched. He didn't know he was helping dismantle his father's promise. Caleb spoke with polished enthusiasm about margins and scalability. The audience nodded, hypnotized. At minute 12, the screen behind him glitched, then shifted to my own slides, loaded from a hidden source. Gasps rippled. On the screen appeared archival photos, small workshops, wind farms built in prairie dust, crews smiling under turbines. A logo older than Blue Ark, Crawford Innovations, stamped on every image. Caleb froze. This isn't. The CEO frowned. "What is this?" Quote, I rose and stepped forward. Conversations paused as recognition spread. "That," I said, voice steady but resonant, "is where you came from." All eyes turned toward me. Even the violinist stopped mid-note. "Who are you?" the CEO demanded. "Peter Crawford," I replied, letting the weight of the name settle. "Founder, former CEO, majority shareholder." Murmurs flooded the room like startled birds. Caleb's face drained of color. "Dad?" he whispered. "We'll talk," I said quietly, then faced the crowd. This company was born from a dream shared by welders, engineers, and families who believed in clean energy and clean conscience. We built more than profits, we built trust. I glanced toward the screen showing pending terminations. "You call this efficiency. I call it betrayal." The CEO recovered enough to protest. "Mr. Crawford, with due respect, market conditions demand evolution. Evolution doesn't mean cannibalism." Caleb stepped forward, voice low. "Dad, you can't just barge in. You don't understand how business works now." I faced him fully. "No, son, you don't understand success." The room fell entirely silent, boards frozen between guilt and awe, cameras mercifully absent. For a long heartbeat, neither of us moved. My son's pupils darted between me and the startled executives, as if trying to decide which reality he preferred to believe in, the one where he was the rising star, or this new one where his father turned out to own the sky he thought he'd conquered. "Peter," the CEO began carefully, "if you'd like to discuss shareholder concerns, there are proper channels." I invented those channels. I interrupted. The calm in my voice surprised even me. "And tonight I'm exercising the oldest one there is, looking people in the eye." Someone near the back whispered, "He's that Crawford?" "Yes," I said, turning toward the room. "The man whose signature is still on every foundational patent you profit from. The man who promised never to trade human beings for quarterly graphs." An uneasy rustle spread across the tables. Some executives stared at their plates. Others looked at Caleb, silently urging him to take control. He tried. "Dad, can we please step outside?" His voice cracked, part pleading, part scolding, as though I were a teenager embarrassing him in front of guests. "I'm not here to shame you," I said quietly, "only to remind everyone of what we once stood for." I motioned to the projection technician, who nodded, apparently in on nothing but sensing authority. The next slide appeared. Photographs of wind farm crews from small Colorado towns, names and years printed beneath each face. "These were our first contractors," I explained. 87 families built our foundations. 39 of them are still under those legacy contracts about to vanish in the name of efficiency. Heads bowed. Even the CFO fidgeted. Then I addressed the CEO directly. "Do you know what happens when you erase loyalty? You create hollow institutions, impressive on paper, bankrupt in soul." He replied stiffly, "What you call loyalty, our investors call dead weight." "Then your investors never welded turbine blades in a snowstorm," I said. "They never watched a single mom patch her gloves with tape just to finish assembling a gear housing. Those people are the reason this exists." I gestured at the glowing skyline beyond the glass wall. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of distant traffic. Caleb's voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell me, Dad, that you still owned everything?" "Because I wanted you to learn success the hard way," I said. "To earn pride without inheritance hanging over you. I thought if you started at the bottom, you'd discover that every rung matters." He looked down, jaw tightening. "And what if I had proven myself without your interference?" "Then you'd have nothing to fear from the truth." At that, the CEO cleared his throat. "With due respect, Mr. Crawford, this is a shareholders' dinner, not a family reunion." He pulled up a tablet, about to disable my slides. I stepped forward and placed my keycard on the podium. "Override Crawford 01. The screen blinked, recognized an authority it hadn't seen in years, and unlocked. Gasps spilled around the room. "Some systems," I said, "still remember who built them." The final slide filled the screen, our original motto in bold white letters, "Power with Purpose." Then I turned to the crowd. "I'm issuing one motion tonight. Any termination of legacy vendor contracts will be postponed pending ethical review by a joint committee, effective immediately." The CEO stared at me, calculating the odds. "You can't unilaterally." "I own 52% of issued shares," I said. "I can." A ripple of astonishment crossed the tables, followed by applause from the younger engineers who'd been standing along the back wall. They were the ones who still believed companies could do good without apologies. I let the moment breathe, then lowered the microphone. "Dinner's on me," I added softly. "Consider it a reunion after all." Chairs scraped, murmurs rose, forks clinked as tension slowly dissolved into disbelief. I walked toward the balcony doors, feeling Denver's cold wind rush against the glass. Caleb followed at a cautious distance. We stepped outside. The city glittered below like a circuit board humming with life. For a while we just looked, saying nothing. Finally he spoke. "I had no idea, Dad. All those late nights you spent tinkering, I thought you were just nostalgic." "I was building something that mattered," I said, "and I was hoping one day you would too." He leaned against the railing, exhaling. "You made me feel small in there." "No," I said gently. "You felt small because you measured yourself against illusions. I don't blame you. This world trains us to chase spotlights and mistake them for suns." He frowned. "You could have told me." "And robbed you of the chance to understand humility?" He didn't answer. The city lights flickered in his eyes like tiny arguments. Inside, the dinner resumed in a quieter key. I could sense the shift, voices less sure, laughter cautious, people tasting accountability perhaps for the first time. Caleb straightened. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, "we rebuild the way we think about success. Together, if you're willing." He stared at me, suspicion, melting slowly into curiosity. "What does that mean?" "It means we remember that real success isn't measured by how high you climb, but by how many people your ladder holds." A smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. "Still lecturing?" "Still parenting," I said. He laughed softly, then looked at his shoes. When I told you that you didn't understand success, I was trying to impress the wrong people. I know, I said. That's why I didn't argue. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The wind tugged at my tie, scattering faint echoes of violin music from inside. I thought about how time changes everything, but lessons never taught repeats themselves louder. He asked, "Were you serious about the review committee?" Completely. Those contracts stay. I'll fund modernization myself if needed. Won't that upset investors? If profit trembles at the sight of principle, maybe it deserves to shake. He nodded slowly. I want to help. You already can, I said. Just start by listening. Those vendors, the technicians, you'll learn more in one day on their floors than in a month of presentations. Come with me? He asked. I smiled. No, go alone. Introduce yourself without my shadow. Let them teach you what textbooks skipped. He extended his hand. For years, our handshake had been routine. Tonight, it felt like beginning again. Over the next week, reports spread across the company's channels. Founder returns, freezes layoffs, orders ethical audit. Social media spun its usual myths, half hero worship, half suspicion. I ignored both. What mattered were the quiet messages from small towns. A welder's wife writing thank you. A foreman sending a photo of his crew, holding up a banner that read Still Family. Caleb visited 3 of those sites. He phoned me afterward, voice softer. Dad, they told me you used to eat lunch with them on pickup tales. They taught me everything about leadership, I said. The rest just taught me spreadsheets. He chuckled. They also said you once repaired a broken turbine alone during a blizzard. That's mostly true, I admitted. Though the storm did half the work, it loosened the bolts I couldn't reach. He paused. I think I finally get it. Get what? Success. It's not applause, it's alignment. I felt warmth bloom behind my ribs. Good definition. Weeks passed. Blue Arc stabilized. Investor confidence rebounded, ironically stronger because the story humanized our brand. People said authenticity had become the new asset class. I just smiled. The old truths always find new marketing labels. One evening, Caleb knocked on my apartment door carrying takeout Thai and 2 bottled iced teas. Dinner's on the junior director, he announced. We ate at my small table, the same scuffed wood that had witnessed my earliest sketches. He looked around and shook his head. You could live anywhere, but you stay here. Why? Because success should fit comfortably, I said. If it feels too large, it starts wearing you instead of the other way around. He looked thoughtful. People at work keep asking what's next for you. I already arrived, I said. Now it's your turn. He grinned. That speech you gave, folks still quote it. They keep saying you humiliated the board. I shook my head. No, I reminded them. Humiliation fades. Remembrance changes behavior. After dinner, we walked the same river path where my ideas had once been born. The turbines above the city turned lazily in the night breeze, silent witnesses to history. Caleb said quietly, you were right, you know, about ladders holding people. And you're proving me right every time you protect one, I replied. He stopped walking. I want to rename the new apprenticeship program after you. Rename it after the crews, I suggested. Call it the Pioneer Network. They're the real reason both of us understand daylight. He nodded. Done. At the far bend of the path, the wind picked up, carrying that clean metallic song turbines make when perfectly tuned. We stood listening. He said, if someone were to ask what success means to you now, what would you tell them? Quote, I thought for a moment. Success is when your children stop chasing mirrors and start building windows. He smiled faintly, eyes glimmering. Then I guess I'm still learning. So am I said. That's the secret no one tells you. Success never graduates. Back at my apartment complex, we lingered by his car. The street lamp cast long twin shadows on the pavement, one old, one new. Thanks for coming that night, he said. For embarrassing me, for saving me, whichever it was. For reminding you, I corrected. He laughed softly. Same thing. Then he added, you gonna keep the apartment forever? Until the lease on humility runs out, I said with a half grin. He groaned. still with the dad jokes. Occupational hazard of wisdom, I said. As he drove off, I gazed at the skyline once more, the glass tower gleaming with its logo, the turbine slowly rotating beyond. The city didn't look conquered, it looked alive. And maybe that's what legacy truly is. Motion sustained by stories, purpose disguised as wind. Later, sitting by the window, I wrote in my notebook, the same habit that had started everything. Under the date, I scribbled one line. Success is not inherited. It's demonstrated daily in the way we treat those who forget our names but live better because we once cared. I closed the notebook and let silence settle. For the first time in years, I felt no need to hide what I had built or who I had become. Wealth had never been the point. Worth was. Somewhere downtown, lights in the Blue Arc Tower formed the outline of the company's motto, still glowing against the night, power with purpose. I smiled. Purpose had power once again.